Well, there we have it, guys. Ireland take the first game of round 2, 32 points to 19 in a pretty dominant game from Ireland. World number 1, showing why they are world number 1, taking the Grand Slam double away from France and setting Ireland up for a fantastic Six Nations. As always, of course, we'll be running through the scores, the highlights, some stats, and some thoughts on the game. If you enjoy this style of video, make sure to leave the video a like and subscribe to the channel, because there's going to be a bunch more rugby videos coming out across the Six Nations. On to the first half then, where at halftime we went in at 22-16, and to be fair, I feel like France probably would have been happy with that 16. Most of the points coming through the boot of Ramos, but no, 4 tries. I really didn't think I'd be talking about 4 tries in this opening half, and Ireland potentially could have even had more by the end of this first half. The bonus point in the first half, didn't think I was going to be saying that in this game. The opening 5 did go the way of France, though. They seemed to have the majority of time on the ball. We did have a bit of a shaky exit from Ireland straight from the first kickoff, though, with the ball hitting the spider camera, which is always fun. Kind of a rarity in rugby, but there's some good targeting to eventually get there. And it was France who got on the scoreboard first from that pressure. Ireland players not rolling away, giving Ramos that first penalty to take France 3-0, only 5 minutes into the game. But Ireland came back straight from that kickoff with a nice little grubber kick from James Lowe, which saw Thomas Ramos just gliding into touch with his feet, giving Ireland a great platform to launch from. And it was only a few minutes later when Hugo Keenan got his try from an inside ball from Finlay Bealham, caught the French defence out of shape, ran through, beating 2 defenders and getting himself over for his try. The conversion taken well by Sexton, getting Ireland back into the lead 7-3. Now, the set piece was looking good. Both teams will have been happy with this first half performance in terms of the set piece. None of them really going down. France had one towards the end of the first half, but the majority of the scrum staying pretty strong. Lineouts are pretty good for the majority of the game. I think there was only one really awkward throw-in that came from Ireland at one point, but overall set piece was looking good. But both teams trying to use that platform to launch from, but Ireland really didn't want to keep it in the scrum. So when we saw throughout this first half, Ireland wanted to get it out of the scrum kick, and it was leading them to have great advantage in terms of breaking the line, making those gain meters. But another theme throughout this first half was that Ireland really giving the advantage back to France. Every time France went on the attack, it didn't really feel like they were making that many meters. They were definitely going fast. They were looking for the offloads. They were sort of struggling, though. The Irish defence, when it was organised and France trying to get through them, really wasn't finding a lot of gaps. And it was made a little bit strange by the fact that every time Ireland seemed to be having such a good defensive set, it always sort of got ruined eventually by Ireland trying to slow down the ball, trying to give themselves time to readjust and giving away penalties, which is where you saw so many of these penalty kicks coming from Ramos. We had them all game just in terms of Ireland being put under pressure, trying to slow down the ball, going too far and giving away those penalties. But I feel like if they'd held out some of their defensive line, just back their own defence and not tried to stop France from having the quick ball, you might have even seen France have a few less points on the board. France were the ones who got the next try, though. Damien Penaud, as I was just sort of saying about when the Irish defence was organised, France not really getting anywhere, but as soon as that defensive line broke down, got a bit misshapen, France really came to life. They are loving the broken play in this first half. And one of the reasons this seems to keep coming around is Ireland keep attempting to do these strange kicks over the top. They're certainly losing the aerial battle. The aerial battle and the kicking game is definitely going the way of France. And every time Ireland do this, they seem to be losing meters because France go on a big counter-attack and the Irish defensive line isn't set. If they sort of cut that out, you'd really think they'd have a much better chance of this one. But Damien Penaud getting his try again, started off the back. An Irish kick forwards. France managed to bobble it out. Thomas Ramos slapping the ball across the ground to get it out to the winger. Made a fantastic break. Some nice little offloads. Irish defence looking a bit awkward in terms of the scramble. We saw a couple of Irish players running into each other trying to tackle French players. And a fantastic run from him. Saw him get it over the try line. Converted by Ramos. Saw France take the lead towards that 20th minute. 13 points to 7, but Ireland came straight back. It was something I've been really impressed by Ireland this first half. Every time it went wrong for them, they got straight back on it and went back at this game. James Lowe scoring his try in this first half, managing to recover their own kick from that kickoff, putting them on a great platform. Ireland go through the forwards a bit, just gain those meters, tighten up the French defence. They spread it out wide where James Lowe goes in for the try, jumping in the air, just managing to get to touch. We did check it on the TMO. Now, there's a couple of talking points around this because James Lowe Definitely looked like he had a bit of a jump, but it didn't look like he jumped over the player. It looked more like he dived for the line. There was questions whether his foot touch. I think the TMO got it correct, and he didn't get his foot down. And did the ball touch the dead ball line? I think I agree with him that the ball was actually down and it was a try. But one thing that seemed to get missed off a lot in this first half. Now, normally when I talk about these games and stuff, I don't really like talking about when referees are getting things wrong or not having a good game. This opening first half, though, I feel like Ireland really had the ref not on their side. There were a couple of penalties. This one in particular for this try, at no point did I hear it mention about the fact that it looked to me like Damien Penaud completely led with his shoulder, no arms engaged in the tackle at all to stop that try. And had that try been disallowed, I think it would have just been purely down to an illegal tackle. I'm surprised it wasn't looked at as, is it a try here or a penalty try? There was also an earlier one, I did think Mac Hansen got taken off the ball towards the start of the game when chasing down a kick. I also think Mac Hansen got blocked in terms of crossing on his run. I saw 2 shots to Irish heads in the ruck. There was quite a few penalties getting missed by the reffing team in this first half, which is a bit of a shame because you don't want to see that. You want to be seeing, a fair and consistent gameship throughout the whole game. Sexton did miss that kick though, so France just remained in the lead. But from that 20-minute marker onwards, all the way through to half-time, really, we're talking about Ireland on such a good set of attack. It's entirely Ireland in terms of the notes. You can sort of see it on the scoreboard as well. Nothing really going their way. Well, the notes I wrote down here was just about the fact that Ireland need to stop kicking away the ball. As soon as they have it in their hands and they're going through the phases, they're making meters on every single carry. You need to stop kicking it away and just let them work their way through, and they were making good lines. In the 25th minute then, we had the yellow card coming in for Antonio, which at the time looked like a great shot. Someone who enjoys rugby, you enjoy just watching just a massive tackle going in. Antonio with a big hit, did go back and review it on the TMO. Did look at it and it was classed as a high contact and it was sort of dangerous, came in, shoulder to head sort of impact. Was a yellow card. It's a bit of a shame because I feel like shots like that are something you really enjoy in a game of rugby. It looked like a big shot. It didn't look necessarily the most dangerous tackle. By letter of the law, has he hit him in the head? Yes. I'm glad it was given as a yellow card, not a red. I feel like we've seen them given as reds before. But, you want to be seeing big tackles in rugby anyway. So I sort of agree with it having to be a yellow card. It's just a shame that it was. And Ireland made the most of this, scoring a try only a minute later through the hands of Porter, who had a much improved game from last week. We sort of spoke about him getting those penalties last week, really keeping his discipline in check in this first half and getting himself a try, which was really nice to see. The French scrum did hold well, even while down a man, but it was just those pick and goes from Ireland getting themselves over the try line, converted by Sexton. 19-13 to Ireland at that 25-minute marker then, and Ireland did manage to keep it going. They had a lovely little break out of their own half. Sexton running down the wing, gets the ball passed back inside to Keelan Doris to run it on. Again, I feel like there was a late tackle here from Damien Penaud on Sexton, just clearing him off the ball. I didn't really hear if there was an advantage given for that or not because it looked a little bit shaky. They also ran the ball up the field and Gal Ficou managed to stop the ball going over the try line, but then just sort of laid on top of the ball. That also wasn't given as a penalty or a yellow card. I feel that was incredibly cynical. They went a little bit further on and eventually Ireland got done for a neck roll. So France managed to survive that one, but again, I think there was 2 penalties in there missed by the refereeing staff. But Ireland managed to make the most of the yellow card. They didn't give away that many points. They did manage to get 1 penalty back during the yellow card, so a net loss of 4 points. Not the worst for 10 minutes down a man. That one going through the boot of Ramos as well, really keeping them in this game at this point. 19-16 with the majority of these points all coming from Ramos. And then the final 5 minutes is just all Ireland on the all-out attack. France do so well to defend on their own line. Cyril Bay in this opening half stopping 2 tries in terms of holding the ball up after it's gone over the try line. Superb game from him. I think Ireland will be a bit annoyed to have not come away with the bonus point in this first half. They got over that try line so many times and right up on the try line, but just not really converting it. But the open play beginning to show there with the yellow card. Ireland making good ground as well. Final score of the half then was converted by Sexton's boot. They had a penalty just under the post. A nice easy 3 points. It did look like the momentum was with Ireland, but sometimes you've just got to take the 3 and make the most of it. So we went in at halftime, 22 points to 16 in terms of notes, and I just sort of said how I thought it was a really good half from Ireland. We just need to minimise the kicks. The kicking game's not really working for them, but keeping it in hand's working extremely well. You just need to go through a few more phases and let it come. France only seem to be making ground in terms of Ireland having a bit of a loose defensive side, but as soon as Ireland look defensively sound, they are really beginning to struggle to get through then. Some final stats at that half-time whistle then. Possession, 49% to Ireland. Really felt like Ireland had the majority of it. Stats taken from Sage. That's the most sort of official one we can have for it. Territory, 63% to Ireland, which, you know, felt like they were spending the most amount of time in the French half. And the time in the opposition 22 really sort of shows that one off. 5 minutes 30 spent in the French 22 and 42 seconds spent in the Irish 22. So Ireland really making the majority of it, but just to show that sort of loose defence happening and why France are making the ground. Missed tackles, 21 for Ireland, 7 for France. So even though France made the majority of the tackles, the Ireland players are just letting those French players like Dupont make the most ground. On to the second half then, where Ireland were the ones to be able to clinch this one out. Not as high scoring as that first half. The first half really sort of exploded, but a couple of talking points to go through in this one. The opening 20. Not really a lot to talk about because both teams are really taking turns just trying to find their way into the game. The first half was a lot more sporadic, both teams really on the offensive. The second half felt a bit more like both teams knowing this game was going to come down potentially to the wire, trying to organise themselves. We saw far more kicking tennis. The game had slowed down and both teams were just trying to feel their way around the other team. The Irish defensive line so much better than in that first half with those few breaks that we got to see, which is why France sniping through, but Ireland doing fantastic. Ireland were realistically winning the kicking battle in the second half. They stopped going for the aerial contests and just tried to constantly hit the grass or try and pin France back, and it was such a good tactic. It worked so much better than in that first half. There was the potential for some points to go towards France, but they did miss quite a difficult penalty that came from Van der Fleer not releasing, but they didn't manage to convert that one, so didn't get on the scoreboard very soon. And shortly after that, Ireland lost Johnny Sexton, which meant we actually got to see Ross Byrne for a good portion of time, which is what I look forward to. I mentioned it in the preview video. I really want to see him spend a bit more time on the field because I really rate him as a fly half, and he came on, made a nice impact in this game. As you got to see as well from Keenan, getting a beautiful 50-22 kick from him. Fantastic one, getting right into the corner, into the French 22. You don't get to see enough of that 50-22 getting into play because backs have adapted it so much. Ireland were the first ones on the scoreboard in the second half then. Penalty converted by Ross Byrne. Ireland giving big pressure right up on the French line, to be fair, giving away an offside from those one-off carriers. Again, Ireland just not quite getting that try over the line, but was slotted through to extend that lead out for Ireland, but France pulled it straight back afterwards with their own drop goal. Something else we don't see enough in rugby anymore. Drop goal coming from Ramos only 2 minutes after the Irish penalty, so sort of neutralising that score out. 25-19 to Ireland then, only 20 minutes left in the game. That was at the 60th minute, and from then on, realistically, it just feels like Ireland taking advantage of the game. That was the last score we got to see for France for the entire game. They only scored 3 points in the second half. And in terms of just notes that I had coming across here, 60 to 67-ish minutes was just Irish kicking tactic, pinning France back. We saw the subs coming on, making such a massive impact in this game. It's what we talked about in the preview videos. What I want to see from subs in a game is that they come on and change the game, not just see it out. And the Irish subs absolutely taking that on board. Craig Casey with some beautiful little kicks over the top, kicking it along, finding touch with those grubber kicks, as we saw Keenan doing, Ross Byrne doing as well. We got to see Tom O'Toole coming on, running with the ball in hand, breaking through tackles. So nice to see when a bench comes on and makes an impact. The French bench was coming on, not making as much of an impact. I think the best one for me probably would have been McAloo in this second half in terms of just trying to jackal over the ball constantly, but France spent so much on the back foot having to defend in the second half. There was one try coming in from Gary Ringrose in this second half in the 72nd minute. Just 10 minutes of constant pressure. France not being able to really get out of their own half without a mistake getting in or an offload going slightly wrong. The Irish forwards carrying extremely well up to the line. French defence holding out extremely well. 3 of the people I just wanted to make a quick mention of here: Ficou, Flamon and McAloo in that second half. Wow, those boys did not stop all day in defence. I know McAloo came on a little bit later in that second half, but Flamon all game didn't stop. I think there was a stat for him at the end, so like 26 tackles, just immense work for him. Thought he had a fantastic game. But eventually the gaps did begin to open up. The ball was spread out wide to Ringrose on the wing, who broke through 2 tackles and went over for his try, and slotted through by Ross Byrne. Sees Ireland get to that 32-19 scoreline and a bonus point win over France. I don't think I said that in my predictions, and I didn't think I was going to be saying it today. I really thought this was going to be a kicking battle. 3-pointers here and there. I did not expect either team to be coming away with 4 tries. And not really a lot more to talk about. It's just a game well held in this second half. A shorter second half to really analyse. France trying to get on the front foot. The Irish defence being incredibly strong. Waiting for the turnover or the mistake. And then just pinning France back in their own 22. And it's very hard to make a comeback from there. Very good game management from Ireland and looked dominant through the whole game. So we finished in that full-time score, 32 points to 19. Man of the match went to Keelan Doris, not surprising because he had an incredible stat. 110 metres made. What an incredible game from him. Just carrying the ball hard. I also think Hugo Keenan could have been there again. He got man of the match last week. I could have been there again. Superb and just in the backfield again. Got his try today. I thought he deserved a bit of an honourable mention. So many of this Irish team doing extremely well. In terms of some final notes then, I just said superb from Ireland. Looked dominant all game. France struggling to get the game moving forward, but their defence was actually very good. It was just those missed tackles that began to let the door creak open for them in that second half. And finally, the Irish subs, absolutely fantastic from that standpoint. Final stats of the game then. Possession 57 to Ireland, so really ramping up in Ireland's favour in that second half. Territory 62% to Ireland, 38 to France. Penalties, these stats were taken by Sage, as I said earlier on. 5 to Ireland, 4 to France. It really felt like there were more penalties than that. I'm not sure whether that stat was necessarily correct. But tackles missed, something to talk about when we spoke about the tackles missed at the end of the first half. Final tackles missed, Ireland 37, France 23. So that tackle miss ratio for France really beginning to get on the increase, mixed in with the impact from the bench from Ireland is where this game really took a turning point. Superb game for Ireland. They continue onwards with potentially the Grand Slam becoming available to them. France will move on to a tough game next week to try and keep their Six Nations dreams alive. I hope you've enjoyed this one today, guys. I'm off to watch Scotland versus Wales. I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.